Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's August 16th. Are you swimming in zucchini yet? Emily Zeftel of the Tennessean wrote an article in 2006 that was titled Gadzooks, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, the article started out this way. Zucchini, the summer squash, is the Rodney Dangerfield of the produce world. It gets no respect. Then the article goes on to share some recipes, which were offered by chef Laura Slama, who said, when you're cooking with zucchini, all you need to do is add a little olive oil and kosher salt to bring out its flavor. The three recipes she shared were for Mexican zucchini corn and black tostadas. That looked amazing. And then sauteed zucchini strings, which is basically zucchini that's been turned into spaghetti. And then finally, an orzo pasta with roasted zucchini. One of my favorite recipes for zucchini is from the New Zucchini Cookbook and Other Squash by Nancy Ralston and Mary Jordan, and it's for a zucchini basil tart. You drain salted zucchini and tomato slices on paper towels. You puree basil in a food processor with ricotta and eggs, and you add mozzarella and Parmesan cheese. And then you line a 9-inch pie shell with zucchini slices. You spoon the basil mixture over the top, and then you put tomato slices over the top of that. And then brush the whole thing with olive oil and bake it for 40 to 50 minutes. It's grand. I'll put the link in today's show notes for all of these recipes, as well as a link to the cookbook. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of Magness Holman, who was born in 1745. Holman is the painter who completed the portrait of Carl Linnaeus that most people recognize. The picture was painted around 1780, and there's not much else we know about Magness Holman. And today is the birthday of François-Andre Michaux. He was the son of the botanist Andrea Michaux. His father named an oak for him. His mother died a few weeks after François-Andre was born. His father was so despondent, he turned to botany to deal with his grief, and his mentors just happened to be some of the top gardeners in the royal gardens. When François-Andre was 15 years old, he accompanied his dad to North America. His father established a botanical garden in 1786 on property that's now occupied by the Charleston Area National Airport. Today, as you exit the airport, you'll notice a stunning mural that pays tribute to the Michaux. François-Andre and his father are depicted together in a potager or kitchen garden. The mural was installed in 2016. François-Andre stayed in America, where he established a nursery in Hackensack, New Jersey, and also in Charleston, South Carolina. France was eager to obtain trees from North America to replenish their forest, and François-Andre grew them in his nurseries. He returned to France briefly in 1790 and participated in the French Revolution. But by 1801, he returned to the United States because the French government wanted him to get rid of the nurseries in Hackensack and Charleston. François-Andre did as instructed, and he also explored the United States as far north as Maine and as far south as Georgia and as far west as the Great Lakes. This time, when he returned to France, he had enough material and experience to prepare his masterpiece, North American Silva, or North American Forests. Today, in 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition was near the narrows of the Columbia River when the Serviceberry was discovered. Serviceberry are available in a number of different species. There's a wonderful graphic showing the different types of serviceberry featured on thespruce.com. I'll share a link to that in today's show notes. Serviceberries are a member of the rose family, and now that you know that, you'll be able to recognize the family resemblance the next time you see one. Serviceberry are primarily prized for their 4-season interest. You get beautiful blossoms in the spring, fruits in the summer, fantastic autumn color, and wonderful bark coloration in the wintertime. The Maryland Department of Resources says that the etymology of the name serviceberry comes from church services, which resumed around Easter time when the serviceberries were in flower and the ground had thawed enough to dig a grave. And today is the birthday of the third son of Charles Darwin, Francis Darwin, who is known to his family as Frank. Frank and his dad published a book called The Movement of Plants. The book details their experiments, which showed that young grass seedlings grow toward the light. And it's the anniversary of the death of Kenneth Woodbridge, who died on this day in 1988. Woodbridge was known for his work on the history of garden design in England and France. Woodbridge wrote a book called The Stour Head Landscape, which is a book about one of England's greatest gardens. Stour Head was the work of an English banker named Henry Hoare, who lived during much of the 1700s. Woodbridge also wrote a book called Princely Gardens. It was his last book, and it was published in 1986. Princely Gardens analyzed the French formal style of landscape architecture. Despite not having the academic background of many garden historians, Woodbridge was a relentless researcher and writer. His obituary stated that his wife, Joanne, always balanced his intensity. In Unearthed Words, here are some quotes about August. The first is from Sylvia Plath. August rain, the best of the summer gone, and the new fall not yet born. The odd, uneven time. And here's one from Sarah Baum from her work, A Line Made by Walking. This morning, the sun endures past dawn. I realize that it is August, the summer's last stand. And finally, here's a quote from Sue Monk Kidd from The Secret Life of Bees. The month of August had turned into a griddle where the days just lay there and sizzled. Today's book recommendation is Plant Parenting by Leslie Halleck. This is a new book that just came out in June of this year from Timber Press. This is a very beginner-friendly introduction to plants, vegetables, and flowers. The images are gorgeous. They make the book feel quite modern and very on trend. For today's garden chore, add more color and wonder to your garden with bee balm or monarda. It's also an herb. Make sure you plant it in full sun and then sit back and watch because pollinators love it, including the hummingbirds. I remember the first time I planted bee balm, I was blown away by the incredible, enticing fragrance. It's a wonderful combination of mint, oregano, and thyme. And once you smell it, that sweet, sweet smell, you'll never forget it. Bee balm starts flowering right about now, and it'll last throughout the summer. When John Bartram was exploring North America, he made contact with the Native Americans who shared with him that they brewed a tea with bee balm to treat chills and fever, and he called it Oswego tea. After the Boston Tea Party, the colonists needed something to drink, and Oswego tea tasted pretty good, and it also helped with sore throats and headaches. In the fall, you can harvest the leaves of your own bee balm and dry them, and then store them for later when you want to make your own Oswego tea. And finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. When I was researching Kenneth Woodbridge, I ran across an article about his son, Tim Woodbridge. The article came out last year in February in the London Economic, and it was called The Incredible Story of How a Grieving Landowner Created One of Europe's Most Celebrated Gardens. Tim was piggybacking on the subject his dad wrote about, which was Stourhead Garden. Tim says his dad discovered 95% of everything that is known about the garden today. The garden is breathtaking because it is surrounding this gloriously man-made lake. All along, people have assumed that the lake was part of the plan by Harold Hoare, the banker who established the garden as his lasting legacy. But Tim believes he's uncovered a secret about the garden that had been lost to time. In 2005, the National Trust commissioned an underwater survey of the lake. Tim's book, called The Choice, explains that the lake is hiding a first garden, a garden that was built to honor Hoare's dead wife named Susan. The garden was nearly completed when suddenly Hoare's only heir and son, Henry, died of smallpox in Naples. He was just 22 years old. Tim believes that the garden was now too painful and that in response to his great loss, Henry Hoare did something shocking. He built a dam and then flooded the garden, creating the magnificent lake that brings people from all over the world. Instead of being a planned part of a grand design, the lake was born out of grief. And I think if a garden could cry, this is what it would look like. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org. And be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great weekend in the garden, and we'll see you on Monday.